Today's event possible. My name is Tatiana Bessarabova, and I'm with the Knowledge and Partnerships Lead for the Business Call to Action based at the United Nations Development Program. Eva, would you be so kind and switch the slide? Thank you. We have an excellent panel of speakers today, and it is my pleasure to introduce you to Jessica Graf, Network Partner for Hystra, Sambal Tobiko, Agribusinesses Officer for Juhudi Kilimo, Pierre, Sourcing Development Manager for the Danone Ecosystem Fund. Today we will kick off by sharing and discussing insights on 6 different topics. We will do this in the form of a quiz to also get you involved. This will be followed by a panel discussion and a Q&A session with the audience. So if you have any clarifying questions, submit those in the chat function below on your right-hand side. We will address those as we go along. If you have discussion questions for our speakers, please keep those until the end. We will have an opportunity to discuss them as well. And just as a reminder, if you're not a speaker, please keep your microphone muted to avoid any background noise. Thank you very much. And let's proceed to the next slide, please. So what is the question that the webinar seeks to answer today? Well, we know that many productivity-enhancing products and practices exist, and that they change the lives of millions of larger farmers worldwide. But for many reasons, which are well known and documented, we struggle to reach the smaller farmers. So today's discussion examines what actually works in practice. Jessica, can you tell us a bit more about where you gathered the best practices and if you could share it and discuss them today? And just again, please keep your microphone muted. I do hear some noises coming from the participants. Thank you. Over to you, Jessica.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jessica. I work for Hystra, which is a consulting company, and we had the opportunity to work on a fantastic study to understand what works. We all understand what doesn't work, meaning why is it so difficult to enroll small farmers, either as sellers of their produce or as buyers of inputs and equipment, but few people still understand what actually works when trying to collaborate with them. And so this study, which was financed by the CNA Foundation, Danone Ecosystem Responsibility and the Street Development Corporation, really looked at the best practices gathered from 15 companies and projects worldwide. You can see from the map there, they come from Latin America, Africa, and Asia, and together these 15 projects actually work in 15 commodities together with 2 million small farmers every year. So we feel that it is rather representative and should be talking to quite a few other companies and organizations trying to work with small farmers. Pierre, do you want to tell us a little bit more about ecosystem?
Yes, of course. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Pierre. I work for and I'm responsible for the sourcing cluster, that is all the projects related to sourcing. I'd like to give you a very quick introduction on the Danone Ecosystem Fund. And to do so, I will ask you to go back in the history a little bit. In 2008. 2008 is the beginning of the crisis, and Danone is the big enough company to face such a crisis. But some actors in our value chain, like suppliers, for example, who work for Danone are in difficulties and as a consequence can put us at risk. And this shows the interdependency of a group like Danone, an industrial group, multinational, and its ecosystem. That is all the actors that depend on us and we depend on. So this very important interdependency gave birth to a decision. We decided to set up an endowment fund of 100 million euros to reinforce our ecosystem and work on inclusive value chains. So it's a general interest fund, and the idea is to test and prove alternative inclusive business models and progressively use this knowledge in our day-to-day mainstream activities. So what do we do concretely to reinforce our ecosystem? We finance projects that answer a business issue and at the same time create social value. And this social value creation we measure with two KPIs. One is the job created, all the jobs we create to the project, and another one is the job reinforced. We have 5 clusters where we operate, from sourcing to micro distribution, recycling, territory, and that's the area where we have projects. And an important point for the Danone Ecosystem Fund is that we work in co-creation with the subsidiaries of Danone located in different countries, but also with non-for-profit partners who help us to implement the project in the field, and also, of course, with the Ecosystem Fund for financing and coaching the project. A snapshot of where we are today. Today we have 63 projects. We have an impact on 2.2 million indirect beneficiaries. We operate around 28 countries with 50 partners. So to conclude, I would say that we believe that business alone is a barbary and social alone is utopia. And that's why our ambition is to, through this fund, is to mix social and business to find the best solution for both and to find the synergies between the social and the business and not oppose them. Jessica, Tatiana?
Yeah, thank you, Pierre.
Thank you very much, Jessica.
Yes.
If we could go to the next slide, please. I will here say a couple of words about Juhudi Kilimo. That is actually a member company of the Business Call to Action. Unfortunately, we're having a bit of a technical difficulty with Samuel joining us today from a remote location in Kenya. So I'll just say a couple of words, and we hope that he can join us later in the discussion. So Juhudi Kilimo provides investment capital to acquire agricultural assets, which generates additional income and more for the smallholder farmers in Kenya. And we can share more resources with you as we go along about Juhudi Kilimo, and hope that someone can join us at some point during the discussion. But in the meantime, I could share a bit more information about the Business Call to Action for those that might not be familiar with our work. So Business Call to Action is a unique multilateral partnership that challenges companies to advance core business activities that are inclusive of poor populations and contribute to the achievement of Sustainable Development Goals. We are supported by 5 key donor governments: the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, the UK Department of International Development, the US Agency for International Development, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Government of Finland, and the United Nations Development Programme, which hosts the Secretariat. As pioneers in the space of inclusive business, BCTA members are advancing the inclusive business agenda by creating innovative new models, sharing lessons learned, and forging new partnerships to improve scale and increase development impact. To date, we have over 140 companies that responded to the Business Call to Action by making commitments to improve the lives and livelihoods of millions through commercially viable business ventures. 27 of our member companies are in the agribusiness sector, and they're using inclusive business strategies to productively engage smallholder farmers at various stages of the value chain. You can find more information about our work by visiting businesscalltoaction.org. And if we can proceed to the next slide, thank you. So now we would like to hear from you, our audience. The instruction is that the question will appear on the screen, and you'll have 15 seconds to select the answer you think is correct. Just click on the button Submit at the right hand corner of the chat box. And if we can please see the poll, that would be great. Once you hit the submit on the question, then Jessica and Pierre will share their thoughts and insights on each one of the questions. If you have any technical clarifying questions, please type them into the chat box. We'll try to address those as we go along, but if you have any general remarks or questions for our speakers, let's hold off until the end to discuss those. So our first question today is, can businesses make money by working with small farmers as sellers or buyers? So your options are A, no, yes, B. B is yes, but with a limited fashion, or C, yes, and often in significant ways. You have 15 seconds now to please select the correct answer. And once you select it, please make sure to click on the submit button. So we have about 10 seconds left. I hope that everyone can get their answer in. Please don't be shy.
Everyone should really, it's anonymous, so we won't be seeing who answers what, but please answer. It's a nice way for you to test your knowledge, and if you have it right, it's fantastic. If you don't have it right, then we can have a discussion on why you think you're right and your views are different from ours. So please, we try to make this interactive. Please try to answer the poll. Siva, how many people have voted so far?
Just to add that in case you can't see the poll, you need to click on the polling.
If people have, okay.
Great. Thank you very much for answering the question. I see that the majority has answered yes, and often in significant ways. Jessica, would you like to share your thoughts on this?
Yes, and I see also that not everyone voted, so please, those who haven't voted, please try to do next time. So I'm happy to say that the majority is right, and what we've seen, there is a bird on the side, but what we've seen is that either as a buyer of agricultural products or as a seller of inputs and equipment, then you can actually make quite a bit of money from working with smallholder farmers, contrary to the belief that this is not, it's too complicated, it's too costly, and so on. If we look actually at numbers, across the 15 case studies I introduced at the beginning, buyers managed to actually generate between 2 and 24 additional net margin percentage points when they start working with smallholder farmers versus prior setups. And if we're looking at companies that try to sell inputs, equipment, or other things to small farmers, this is equally attractive because they manage to grow their customer base from 3 to 5 times. Both in terms of profitability and in terms of volume, working with smallholder farmers it makes business sense and actually is worthwhile. And I wanted to ask Pierre from Danone ecosystem, what has been their experience through their different smallholder farmer projects?
Thanks, Jessica. I can't agree more. Yes, of course, we make money working with small farmers. Actually, I would even say it's the opposite. We couldn't not make money without the small farmers. And I can give you an example where in Morocco, for instance, we work with more than 100,000 small farmers, and they represent the majority of the milk that we are sourcing to produce our products. So that shows the importance of this population for us. What I would like to add is that it takes also a lot of effort. You mentioned it, Jessica, but it takes a lot of effort and resources to work with small farmers, mainly for two reasons. One is that we cannot, as a big company, we cannot work with them individually, so they need to be organized, and we need to help them also to get organized. And the second reason is that we always need to make sure that they improve their standards in productivity and quality, for instance, to keep up with the sustainable business relationship in the long run. So that's very important that they don't lag behind. I think you talked about the very high margin level we can make. For us, increasing our margin is not the driver when we work with smallholders. It's more about securing our sourcing, so securing our business, and also making sure that we have a diversity in the sourcing, not buying only from big farms, but also from medium farms and also from smallholders, to make sure that we are in sync with our ecosystem in the countries where we operate. Tatiana?
Great, thank you very much, Pierre. If we can please go to question number 2. And now this will be an opportunity for everyone to participate. So please make sure to vote under polling on the right-hand side. So question number 2, what is the single biggest lever to increase the profitability of farmers? Is it A, training on better agricultural practices, B, provision of new technology, C, higher selling prices, or D, savings? So once again, we have 15 seconds to answer this question. Please select the option and click on submit at the right-hand side on the bottom of your page. Please make sure that everyone votes. Make sure that you submit the question. And we have a couple more seconds left. And we're going to close the poll now. Thank you very much for submitting your answer. And let's see the results. Let's wait for the results to pop up. Great. Great. So we see a split of opinions here. Some people think that A is the correct option, as well as B and C. So we'll actually ask Pierre to share some insight here.
Yes, based on my experience, I would vote for A. I'm not sure it's the correct answer, but at least from experience it is. We see the training as the biggest lever to increase the revenue for the farmers, because it increased the profitability. Why is it so? Because we are tackling for our projects to a population that have very low education and expertise on raw material production, namely milk and fruit. Most of the time they don't even master the very basics, the fundamentals. So the first step when you start introducing good practices, tips, and change the way they've been always doing and their parents have been doing, you can have a very strong impact, a very quick impact. And I will give you an example just to illustrate what I'm saying. If we take the milk production, it's very important to feed the cow well in order to have a good yield of milk, but also to give access to water to the cow. And most of the time in developing countries, farmers are used to give water only once a day, maybe twice a day. But what we show is if they give permanent access to water to the cows, then the productivity and the milk per cow per day can increase drastically from one day to another by close to 15 or 20%. So this shows really that we have a lot of ways to improve, and that's why I would rank the training as a more important lever to increase the profitability of the farmers.
Thank you very much.
I'm curious about the result of the polls and about the result of the study, because I'm not sure it goes in this direction.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for these insights. Very, very interesting. And I'd like to hand it over to Jessica to share the insights from the study.
Yeah, thank you. So I agree with Pierre, but I would like to build on his point. And I agree with Pierre, the majority of the audience. By the way, 13 people managed not to vote this time. Please, 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 everyone figure out how to click on this poll and submit the answer. It's really worthwhile. So what you can see actually on the slide displayed now on the screen is that all the projects, all the 15 projects we have analyzed provide training and technical assistance in some way. And the reason for that is that it's a must-have. You cannot just, not do it. So if you don't do it, nothing follows. So what we're saying is rather a prerequisite, and when well done, it can definitely bring a lot to those farmers. But what we see is that and this is where you see the upper part of the projects, when which is the bar represents actually the increase in farmers' net income, meaning if net they were earning, let's say, $200 a year the previous year, then like in the upper group, they would double their net income, their profit, thanks to the project or company intervention. And what we see is that the projects that manage to double or more the net income of farmers are systematically the projects who provide some kind of productivity enhancing input and equipment. So yes, you can definitely do a difference in farmers' life by helping them improve their cultivation practices. But if you really want to make a step change into their lives, then giving them productivity enhancing input and equipment makes a world difference, like a huge bump. And obviously you need to couple it with inputs, because with training, because providing a new technology without explaining to farmers how to use it well is rather a bad idea. But this technology is important. What do we mean by productivity enhancing input and equipment? It can be very different things, right? It can be micro-irrigation systems, for instance, in dry areas. It could be improved seeds, improved quality seeds, more adapted perhaps to certain soils and climates. It could be quality fertilizers and pesticides in some areas. Or it could be hybrid cows, for instance, in the case of dairy, that are able to produce not only 1 or 2 liters a day, but more like 5, 6, 7, 10, or even more liters, if well fed. And so that's a little bit our insight.
Great. Thank you very much, Jessica. And we're proceeding to question number 3. Let's see if we can get everyone to vote this time.
It seems that there was a comment from somebody in the audience. I would suggest that we look at these questions at the end, right? So if people have questions, let's please keep them for the end.
Yes, thank you very much for submitting the questions. We'll address them at the end. And now let's proceed with voting for question number 3. So question number 3 is, why some projects struggle to reach high penetration? Is it A, due to small farmers not being able to afford to pay? B, farmers not believing that the gain they could make by evolving their practices are significant enough? C, farmers are risk averse? Or D, other? So again, please make sure to select the option by clicking on the option and clicking on the submit button at the bottom of your right-hand side. And we have 15 seconds to do that. Please make sure everyone submits the answer this time. And we have a few more seconds. Please make sure to submit. A couple more seconds to get everyone's answers in. We hope to have 100% response this time. And we can close the poll. Thank you very much for submitting your answers. We'll see the breakdown in just a second. Oh, I see that we actually have a couple more seconds because we haven't been able to. Okay, great. Perfect. So I see that everyone's opinion here has varies as well. So some people, I think it breaks down evenly between the first three options. So let's see what our experts think. Jessica, would you like to share your insights?
Yes. Yes, sure. So what we've seen is that if you look at the first column, is that the penetration rate from project to project actually varies tremendously. Meaning, in some areas, in some projects, these companies or these organizations manage to work with 90% of the small farmers around, and in some of them they manage just a few percent. And this is just not a question of, maturity of the project or since how many years the project is around, but it seems that really some projects do struggle to convince small farmers to join. And so our assumption was that, the farmers would be more enticed to join or to participate if there was a lot of money to be done. But on the second column, you can see how much money extra farmers could make, and it's absolutely not correlated with the degree of penetration. So actually, farmers are not greedy. It's not, like the expectation of becoming rich that attracts them. Then we were thinking, okay, if it has to do with something, like how much they need to invest. And so on the last column, you see whether they need to invest a lot or not to participate to the collaboration with this company. And what you can see is that there is absolutely no correlation whatsoever either. So it's not because farmers are shy to invest or are unable to invest that the penetration is not that high. What we have seen, however, and this is one of the factors which we think can explain the situation, is what we call the ability to quit the project easily. What do we mean by that? Meaning, if you offer farmers a proposition or a product or a collaboration where they can easily go back to the situation before, they will easily join. Meaning they feel, like, I will take this ride, and if I don't like it, never mind, I can always go back to what I used to do. However, those projects that only give farmers a one-way ticket, and it's extremely difficult to go back, then farmers are usually reluctant to step onto that train. They're not very different from you and me in that sense, right? They hate one-way tickets. And so that's, for instance, one of the main reasons why bioconversion projects are so difficult to grow, is that to get your bio certification, you need to actually cultivate without pesticides and other chemical products for 3 full years, and only after these 3 full years you will get your certification. And if you breach this commitment, then you're back to zero. And so that's why farmers find it extremely difficult to join. Many other projects are also designed in such a way whereby farmers are locked in some ways, and perhaps they should reconsider this approach. What is interesting is that the provision of insurance or guarantees doesn't change much to how the farmers feel about this. Because if you think about it, it's the farmers are not. Farmers react this way not because they are afraid that they might die tomorrow, or the weather, there might be a drought the year after. But farmers react this way because they simply do not want to jump on a train where they cannot go back. So I'd love to leverage Pierre's insights on this one and whether this is something they will use for their projects.
That was a very interesting insight from the report on my side, and this risk aversion is something that we had not taken into consideration when we built our projects. Mainly, we were working on a long-term sort of agreement with the smallholders, thinking it was beneficial to them and they would appreciate it. So seeing the results, we started to see things a little bit differently and to change our approach and test new ways of working with the smallholders. I don't have a lot of history because we started to implement new actions very recently. It looks to work good, but we will keep an eye on it and make sure that we follow up the results and on this. But I will share with you what we have been doing in Algeria, where we have a program, and due to this reflection, we implemented a trial period of 3 months for the farmers to embark more easily on the program. So once again, we don't have a lot of history to do a full assessment, but today it looks rather encouraging. And another benefit that we see from doing those trial periods, shorter time, is also in terms of project management, because we feel much more comfortable also ourselves to engage and commit for a trial period, because with those type of projects, we're starting from scratch, and we know that we're learning by working. So committing ourselves to a short period of time allow us to adjust the program based on how it develops, and to be able to include or take into consideration all the learnings or the challenges that we see in the trial period. So indeed, it was a very interesting insight that we got from this study that we are really implementing right now with so far good results, and probably we will try to roll out this new way of working with the smallholders. Tatiana?
Great, thank you very much, Pierre. Thank you very much, Jessica, for these insights. And let's proceed to question number 4. So again, we really hope to have 100% turnout on this one, so please prepare. And question is, how to choose the right farmers to start a project? Do we want to choose the farmers, option A, with lower incomes, B, with higher incomes, or C, neither? So please read the question and the answers, and please make sure to select the option and click on the submit button at the right-hand side of your polling option. We have 20 seconds, so please make sure to vote for this one. There's no way for us to know who voted for which option, so we're not going to chastise you publicly. Please vote. And a few more seconds. Please select the option and click on submit. Great, the results are in, and I see that, okay, most of the participants selected C, neither. Great. Neither, which means first adopters should not be too rich or too poor. And I would like to see here if Jessica would like to share some insights from the study and the findings.
Sorry. So I must say that yes, the majority of the respondents are right, and I'm very sorry for the 22 who this question seems to have left confused. So what we're saying basically, it's indeed the middle, the sweet spot is in the middle, because when you think about it, starting with the poorest, even though sometimes it's the preferred route for many NGOs and for many foundations who want to have the poorest first, is not the right way, because they have more risk averse than the others. They have a lower level of trust in outsiders, in new practices, and for many reasons for them, agriculture is a subsistence and not really a business to manage. On the other hand, you have the richest farmers, and for many reasons they have because they're already successful, they do not necessarily have so much incentive to change a formula that works, and they prefer to keep the status quo. Another element is that many of the other villagers do not necessarily identify with their success. So even if they adopt that practice, many other villagers will think, well, they have been successful because anyway, they were already successful. They have better land, they have machines, they have so and so. So how can we be sure that they are even more successful thanks to this practice? And so the sweet spot is really in the middle. It should be people, it should be farmers who have enough money to try and test and to have some appetite to take some risk, but not be too rich either to be satisfied with the status quo. And ideally, it should be also people with some level of education and be well regarded in the community. So the example we have in the middle here is Rajendra, who is one of the first adopter of Jane banana seedling program. He came back to his village after finishing a BA because he had to take back the land of his dad. And he was the first one to try something new on that land that was poorly cultivated for many years. He's been extremely successful, and the first thing he did the year after his first crop was to organize workshops for all of the other villagers, saying, if I have been successful in 1 year, everybody can do it. So that is the kind of first adopter you want to invest in first. Pierre, you want to share some insights on there?
Yeah, I can't agree more. For me, the right people will always make the difference, and this is exactly what it's about. You want to find the right person, and the person which is influent enough, transparent, which is a role model and has credibility, but not coming for political clout or richness, as you said. And having said that, it's quite straightforward to understand, but it's not always easy to implement and to spot those people. So we're working on criteria to select and to find them, judging the people from open-minded, curiosity, potential, what they've done in the community. Another way also to spot them is also to have a feedback from the community themselves. And when you start to ask the community, they pretty much know who they believe in. And that's a very good insight also to choose those early adopters who will be ambassadors and who will make the big difference in terms of role model, in terms of rollout of the project. Okay, Tatiana?
Thank you very much, Pierre. Thank you, Jessica, for all the interesting insights. Let's proceed to question number 5. And again, we'll ask that everyone votes on this one. This is an easy one, so please make sure to vote. Question number 5. What is the best way to reach a large number of farmers? Is it through A, working through small groups of farmers, 15 to 30 per group? B, work through intermediaries, individuals or institutions? Or C, work directly with individual farmers? So again, please make sure to select the option that you think is the best. Select and submit at the bottom of the page. We have a few seconds to do that, so please hurry and submit your answer. And we really hope that everyone votes this time. Let's give it a few more seconds. Please make sure to hurry up and submit your answers if you haven't done so yet. We'll be closing the poll in just a second and seeing the results. So we see that we have a few more people that haven't voted. If you haven't, please do so. Great. The results are, most people agree that A, works through small groups of farmers, 15 to 30 per group. Great. And we see a much better turnout this time. So I would like to ask Jessica to share some insights from the study.
Yes, thank you. So I must say that the majority tends to be right in this group. What we see among our projects is that most of them decide, about half of them decide to work through groups of farmers. And what we mean by groups of farmers is about 15 to 30 farmers working together or grouped together. And then the extension officer actually works with this group. Then 3 projects try to work directly with individual farmers. This formula sounds, of course, attractive for the farmers because they will have a one-to-one support and relationship. But as you can see in the numbers, an extension officer manages to cover only 15 to 100 farmers, and this is an extremely costly model. Then on the other end, you have projects that try to work with intermediaries that themselves then coordinate a much larger number of farmers, often in the hundreds. And so what is attractive with these models is that, of course, an extension officer then can cover many more farmers, up to 1,000. However, as we'll see on the next slide, there is a problem working with intermediaries. So let me give you two examples of projects that are working with intermediaries. The first one is Biopartenaire, which is a cocoa sourcing company, and that finds some lead farmers at the village level that are able to have a direct relationship with the company, and then these lead farmers actually recruit and train the farmers, organize payments, organize the harvest collection, and so on. And then Biopartenaire actually pays the lead farmers for the work they do. And what is fantastic, obviously, with this setup is that the outreach costs are much lower. However, what we see also is that because of these extremely hands-off relationship, the loyalty is relatively low among farmers. It means that there is a lot of side selling. Because they feel absolutely no loyalty to a company they hardly see or to a buyer they hardly see. Another example is Cotton Made in Africa, whereby actually a whole alliance of cotton buyers invest into training the ginneries staff in delivering training to farmers. And obviously that model is very interesting in terms of cost because you train, a ginner field staff who then trains hundreds of farmers. The problem with that is, again, there is very limited control over training delivery and training quality, and the result of that is that farmers' performance remains quite uneven, and loyalty is, again, very poor. So what we say is that working with a group of farmers of 15 to 30 farmers is actually probably the best middle way for three main reasons. The first one, if I start from the bottom, is that it allows you to grow much faster, meaning you don't need to have farmers joining one by one, but you have farmers joining 15 by 15 or 20 by 20. Actually, a project called Empresa de Comercialización Agrícola in Mozambique that buys maize from farmers actually is a very attractive proposition, but the farmers are told, we will work with you only if you have already formed a group. And what they see is that the groups are already formed when they enter a new village because news travel fast when there is an interesting deal around. So it allows them to grow their base of farmers much faster. Then the second example is with Kiasi Food. It's a company that actually sources different crops, organic crops from some farmers. And at the beginning, they wanted to work with hundreds of farmers through intermediaries, and they had extremely low loyalty. And what they did is that they decided to have a way more hands-on and close relationship with these farmers. And since they did that, farmers were way more successful. They had a much higher penetration, and as a result, then they have now 100% retention of the farmers who join these projects, because the farmers feel that they are closely supported and personally supported. And the last example from Juhudi is actually the very basics of actually microfinance. Like Juhudi actually does group lending, and that allows for very high repayment rates because actually the members act as co-guarantors, and the whole group saves. And so if there is any problem with one of the members, hopefully the whole group manages to find a solution, and as a result there is very little groups that fail at the wall. What is also interesting with this kind of model is that it's the whole group that handles cash collection. So instead of having to deal with 20 farmers through the credit repayment collection, you just have to deal with one touch point.
Great, thank you very much, Jessica. And we're proceeding to question number 6. And again, we hope that everyone votes this time. The question is, what are effective strategies to deal with defaulters? Is it A, offering more stable income? B, increase transparency and convenience in transactions? C, enforcing tough penalties? Or D, all of the above? So please make sure to select the option that you think is most correct, and make sure to click the submit button on the right-hand side of the page. We have a few seconds to do that, so please hurry up and submit your answers. We really hope to get everyone in for this question. Please hurry up. We have quite a few more people that haven't voted yet. I see them coming through, but not everyone. So please select the answer that you think, that intuitively you think is most correct, and click on submit.
That looks a difficult question. So basically, what do you think makes perhaps the question is not too much clear, but the idea with defaulter means, you know, like the farmers who either do not repay their credit or who start side selling, meaning they promised you at the beginning of the harvest that they would sell their harvest to you, but in the end they go and sell the harvest to some other buyer. So basically how to deal with farmers who display poor loyalty or who do not respect the commitments they say they would, either when repaying the credit or selling you the harvest or even buying the input for next year.
Great, thank you very much for this explanation. And I think we can close the poll now. We see quite a few more people have voted, so thank you very much. The poll is now closed, and we'll see the results in a second. And we have a few more seconds until the results pop up. So if you haven't been able to submit the answer, I believe it's too late now, so we'll just give it a second to see the answers. And thank you again for taking time to vote. Great, so we have quite a breakdown of opinions here. We have a few people that think A is correct, a few others that think B is correct for increased transparency, and most of the people tend to agree that all of the above is the correct answer. Let's see what Jessica thinks about this one.
Yes, again, the majority is right. There is actually, for this kind of problem, there is no single silver bullet. You need to do a combination of things. Actually, small farmers struggle to respect their commitments for a number of reasons, and you need to address those as a whole to make sure that they have all what it takes to remain loyal to you. In general, I think among the most basic stuff you should and have to do is just be extremely transparent when you deal with them, and also make their life, more simple. So let me give you the example again of Biopartner, sourcing cocoa in Ivory Coast. When Biopartner offers the farmers to transport their harvest rather than the farmers having to figure out where to rent a truck to do so, then suddenly 19% of farmers sell their harvest to Biopartner because simply the company, solved the problem for them and made their life easy. The second thing on the right-hand side is that the farmers feel that they can want to deal with people who treat them well and who treat them fairly, and so it makes a huge difference if you offer them mechanical weighting versus digital weighting, meaning they will not trust you if it's a mechanical scale, And the moment they see something sophisticated like digital scale that is very exact, then slowly almost the double of farmers will decide to sell to you because they feel that they can trust these transactions. So this is some of the very basic to-dos, meaning make it simple and make it fair. Now, there is a lot of other things you can do to make these farmers feel that they should deal with you rather than anybody else, and I'm going to let Pierre talk about a couple of more examples that the project in Mexico has been successfully implementing.
Thank you, Jessica. I'll be very quick because we want to have some time for the questions at the end. Basically, in Mexico, on the Margarita project with farmers, what did we do in order to avoid side selling is that we set up a price band, a seasonal price band that limits the high price and the low price. And that way, if there is extra margin, it goes to Margarita and the other way around, so it's quite fair and transparent. It has to be also very simple because we had a big issue with the pricing system that was so complicated that the farmers wouldn't understand them and they would not embark on the program. The other point that I will mention is the bonus, the retained bonus, which is quite an interesting initiative. We can go to the next slide, where we have a loyalty, so some sort of a loyalty bonus. And at the end of the year, we give this bonus during a big party, like a Christmas year-end party, where you have people from Danone and from some people from the farmer's family. And it's a lot of pride around this, awareness. Farmers really like this, and they get a lump sum. It also helps them to do their Christmas presents, etc. Another point is that it goes to the wife usually, because we had issue with bonuses going to drink and things like that. So since the women very often manages the milking activity and also the money of the farm, we now give it to the wife, and it's working very well. It also avoids a period when the farmers can leave, because they should usually wait to get their bonus before they leave, and we reduce the side selling and the leaving of the program drastically. Just a caveat on this, why do we do this? The purpose is really not to lock the farmers into the relationship, because we are totally against this, but at some point we need to make sure that they understand that a mature and grown-up relationship is based on benefit for them from us, but also contribution and duties on their side. And having the open bar attitude, we've seen jeopardize some projects, and in the long run jeopardize and is not beneficial for them or for the community. So that's why we tend to set those guidelines. Tatiana?
Great, Pierre. Thank you very much. And now it's time for our questions. And thank you very much, everyone, for participating in the quiz. I'm very happy to see that our audience got a lot of the quiz questions correct. So we would like to now invite you to submit your questions in the chat function on the right-hand side of your WebEx page. And as you're preparing to type them, I wanted to start with a follow-up question to Pierre. So Pierre, how do you engage the smallholder farmers in the long term in a mutually beneficial relationship? If you could share with us sort of your main challenges that you see and the techniques that you employ to overcome that would be great.
Yes, thank you for this very interesting question, because it's a question we've been asking and continue to ask ourselves all the time in order to improve. Rather than the challenges, I think I will incorporate the challenges in a few answers, and I will give you a few golden rules based on challenges that we had and based on failures also that we had in experience and successes. And I have basically about 5 golden rules. The first one is really to choose the leaders. It was very well documented by the survey before. Jessica talked about it, but it's a key point to have the right people because they really make the difference. So as I was saying, we developed some criteria in order to try to identify those people and work with them. The second rule would be really to install a dynamic of the project and of this new type of relationship with the smallholders. And going to quick wins is a very good way to embark the smallholders. I gave you the example of the water, access to water. This is a very small trick, but I can tell you that when the farmers go to a training and are told this, or they meet a trainer who has to do that, and they do it, and they actually see that the increase of milk from one day to another, the credibility of the program, the credibility of the people on the field, the trust which is built is tremendous. And this really changes the dynamic, because instead of pushing, because we tend to always try to push our program because we think we do things right, but in that case, it's totally inverse the dynamic, and they ask for it. They ask to be part of the program, and then, I mean, half of the battle is win. And changing this dynamic is very important because it works also a lot with the word of mouth, and capitalize on quick wins will really trigger the word of mouth. The third golden rule would be really to be in a co-creation spirit with the smallholders. Once again, very often as big companies, we are not from the territory, we're not from the region. That's also why we need the help of the partners. But imposing our ideas is, even if we want to do good, is a trap that we need to be careful not to fall into. So the co-creation with farmers, listening to them, to their problems, etc., is really a golden rule to embark them. The fourth rule is really to be very concrete, simple, and short time, because that's also how they manage their lives. So we need really to adapt to them. The co-creation process helps us, and to understand them. So very often we use clusterization of the farmers or the smallholders to understand their profile, and it helps us to be adapted to their needs. And then last point, which is also a very important one, is not only to embark the smallholders, but also to embark the stakeholders, because when we deal with smallholders, very often there are a lot of actors, be it government, local government, be it extension services already existing. So any type of stakeholders, we need to identify them, map them, understand them, what are the missions, and embark them as well for the bigger benefit of the project.
Great, thank you very much, Pierre. That's a very important and valuable point. And I just wanted to have a very quick follow-up question for you regarding the stakeholders. So what is the role of the stakeholders in creating solutions all along the value chain? And how do you actually identify them, and how do you work with them?
The stakeholders, as I said, we do, and a key point is also the partner, because we've always, as I said, we always work with a partner, a non-for-profit partner, and which is very locally rooted. And that really helps us to do the stakeholders mapping, and from that we approach them and find what could be the synergies between our missions. And then we work in a co-creation, and we have some co-creation process. And by the way, we actually issued a booklet on co-creation, which is our knowledge from the project, and it's open source, so you can find it on the ecosystem site, internet site, which will be at the end of the presentation, and you can take a look at it. And that's really important to find what are the synergies, have a common interest, and common mission and common interest, but also specific interest. So, so to me, that's the key success factor to have a good co-creation. Transparency is key, and trust, and it doesn't happen overnight, or you don't just decide to trust someone. So it takes a lot of adjustment and working together and workshop sessions to really understand and building together the project. It's important also to embark the stakeholders at the beginning of the project, and to make sure that you monitor the relationship and the co-creation level during all the steps of the project and the length of the relationship. Making sure that you keep the right balance between the organization interest, the common interest, and the contribution of each one in the project. So to that purpose, good governance is key also as a success factor to embark and keep the motivation of all the stakeholders.
Thank you very much, Pierre. We have a question that came through earlier during the discussion and during one of the questions, and it has to do with training without improving access to market information or finance. I just wanted to address this briefly and ask Jessica to chime in. And this has to do with increasing the incomes for smallholder farmers. And one of our participants made a very valid point, saying that training without improving access to market information and finance will most likely not bring higher earnings. So if you would like, Jessica, to share your insights on this question, that would be great.
So yeah, thank you very much, Alejandro. And again, I encourage everybody, please, I see that while the majority of people had the right answers, there is still a minority that had the wrong answers and who probably beg to disagree. So please write us why you think differently, and we can have a conversation on that. The quiz was meant to do, to trigger this discussion. So to get back to Alejandro, I think I agree, Alejandro, that the mix of things are needed to really empower the farmers fully. However, and training being a prerequisite to everything you do. However, we believe that if you can do only a few things, meaning if you cannot have a Superman organization which is providing inputs, providing technology, providing credit, buying from the farmers, organizing them, and so on, if you don't have a Superman organization that need to focus on a few aspects, then we feel that the provision of the focusing on productivity and the provision of quality inputs and technology is probably the single biggest lever you can use. Of course, combined with training and combined with appropriate accompaniment, but this is where you should focus your efforts. And in some ways, it also makes sense from a deeper standpoint, because basically you give the means to farmers to drive their own success, right? When they have a better tool to make more money, then you can trust the farmers that 9 out of 10 they will make good use of this tool and work hard to actually make a better living. When you work on the supply chain and when you disintermediate X for Y, and when you try to set up very complex supply chains to ensure that some premium goes back to the farmer, basically you're replacing an evil by another. The farmer is still dependent on somebody to get a better price, to get to buy his stuff, and so even if these buyers might be more benevolent or might promise to give back a bigger share of the premium, the farmer is still in an dependency situation. And what we've seen also is that all this premium that, for instance, these certification programs bring, or these fair trade premium bring, once the cooperative has taken its share, and once everything, all the costs of these programs have been paid, then what goes down to the farmer is actually peanuts, right? And so it will just improve its income from 5, 10, 15%, while giving them better inputs and better technology can up to double it. So we're not saying there is a single bullet for everything, but that if you need to focus, then definitely include that one into your program.
Great, thank you very much, Jessica. We have another question from Aditya, who asks, what are the trends you see in employment? Will the number of small farmers increase or decrease by 2030 to 2050? For example, are you seeing more of consolidation or fragmentation? And perhaps we can ask Pierre to take this question.
Yes.
Thank you, Pierre.
It's a tough question. It's a difficult question, but a very interesting one, because we believe that agriculture and farming is really a main source of jobs, especially in developing countries. At the same time, we see that the more the country develops, the less farmers they have. And we've seen this in different countries at different stages. For instance, if you take Egypt, you have a lot of farmers. We work with 4,000 farmers. If you look at Ukraine, for instance, or in countries that are a little bit more mature, you see that naturally there is a tendency for consolidation. And why is it so? It's because in I would say poor countries or developing countries with challenges, we're talking about subsistence farming. Subsistence farming is just very often one activity among several activities where those families have a little bit of revenue and can basically survive. But the more you have the economic development, or the more you develop your activity, the more farmers tend to be specialized and then put the effort in family farming. And family farming, at least as we consider it, is really having an activity through agriculture, but only through agriculture that makes you and your family live. So because of this switch from subsistence to family farming, there is a tendency to have less farmers, and also because in the family, when they do better, the children tend to do studies and they don't necessarily go to agriculture. So this is a tendency that we see in many countries, and it's a normal tendency that we see. So my answer would be it is still be a substantial lever for employment, but there is a tendency to reduce the number of farmers.
Great, thank you very much, Pierre. We'll take the next question from Pascal, and then we'll try to answer the question. It might be a difficult one, but we'll try to address it as best as possible. So are most farmers to business linkages programs funded by development partners? What is the percentage of those funded by lead firms? Is this percentage increasing or decreasing? And what are they funding and what they expect others to pay for in those programs? Jessica, would you like to try to address this question?
Yeah, so Pascal, I don't have all the answers, but I can try to provide you some insight. So we did a study on 15 projects, and actually out of these 15, only 1 or 2 were actually donor funded, because the truth is that most donor funded projects are not very successful and not very large nor sustainable. And among the ones we've seen is exactly the same, the idea that many donors have this preconceived idea that something is broken and they need to fix it. And so they will try to recreate an artificial link between the farmers and the companies. This link is often artificial, as I said, and the day the donors stop being around paying for that link to subsist, the link disappears. So what we're seeing is that it's much more interesting to actually help a company crack a market and work with these farmers in the right way than just assume that you can, create a link that was never there for very good reasons. What we've seen, however, where donor intervention is quite useful also is to pay for the technical assistance at the beginning. So many of the company projects actually struggle to find a budget to pay for training at the beginning, because typically your training cost is between 10 to 15% of your overall of your overall budget. And so a lot of companies struggle to squeeze their margins to pay for that at the beginning, and many donors step in to pay for this technical assistance. And that we think is a good thing, but you need to stop as soon as the company starts making money, which is the case for all of our projects. As soon as the company starts, getting better margins, then they can take the training over. So that's the short answer.
If I may chime in very quickly to this question, it's something that we've been thinking over, because when we implement programs, we try to put in place entities that will continue the work of the project. So more and more, that's why I was talking about stakeholders, because joining forces can be very helpful, especially in the financing of the program. And today, actually, and this was not the idea at the beginning when we started the fund, but today we are co-financing as much money as we are putting ourselves as ecosystem fund from the partners. So co-financing and co-building programs is a way to make sure that we go further, bigger. But also, I'm taking the example of the Algeria project. In Algeria project, we ask all the actors of the value chain, so not only external stakeholders, but really the leader of the owner of the collecting centers, the transporters of the milk, the farmers themselves, to pay for the training and for the program. So little by little, we will increase their contribution, and the idea is that the programs can be self-sustainable. So, and the farmers, everybody told us that we would never have the farmers pay for anything. And today, I hope it will last, but today it was a good achievement, because we have farmers paying. It's not big, but they pay their due. And that makes a big difference also in the positioning of the program and how they relate to the program.
Great, thank you very much, Pierre. There's one more question that we'd like you to take today, and it came from Michelle. Thank you very much for all the questions that you've been submitting. If we don't get through all the questions, we'll be happy to follow up in writing. So here's the question. What are the effective ways to convince farmers that training and know-how will lead to higher incomes in the long term, assuming access to market finance? So Pierre, perhaps you could address this question quickly.
Yeah, my answer is don't try to convince them. It's a little provocative, but we've been trying, and it doesn't really work. So what works is that as we said, finding the one that, because in the community you always have someone who is willing to try. So invest on this one, and then let the other one see it, and invest on the early adopter. Invest on the quick wins with the early adopters, and then we see that people get to you and ask you to be part of the program. So in the 3 years I've been working with ecosystem, I grew tired of trying to convince, and I came to the conclusion that this is not probably the right way. So I don't know if this is the answer you want to hear, but at least this is my answer.
Great, thank you very much, Pierre. Very much appreciate your time today. There's one more question for Jessica from Antoine. So Jessica, you quickly mentioned insurance earlier in the debate. It seems to me it can be a key driver towards massive adoption of tech innovation and directly linked to reversibility. Do you have any insights or experience on the field regarding microinsurance schemes for smallholder farmers and their effectiveness?
Yeah, yes. So microinsurance, Antoine, thank you for picking this one up, because microinsurance is a must. I have not said that it's useless. Microinsurance is a must to protect these farmers, and especially the more vulnerable ones, from shocks. However, selling microinsurance, what we've seen is selling microinsurance to farmers directly is just the worst thing to do. Because you imagine, you know, like somebody you don't know approaching you and saying, don't you want to pay me in case you and your wife die next year, and so that some money goes to your kids? And you look at this person, you're like, what's wrong with him, right? And so, and same with like, don't you want to give me some money in case there is a very bad drought next year, and we'll help you? So I think, you know, farmers don't really understand what you're talking about when you try to sell them that stuff. However, you need to package it differently. Imagine. And this is what some people do. Imagine that, you know, like if you go to buy your seeds from a particular shop, and the shop owner says, you know what, you pay my bag of seed a tiny bit more than the competitor, but I promise you, if the seeds fail, you can come and pick up another bag. And so that's interesting. So it's and there's plenty of ways to do that. So today with the technology we have, meaning that you have weather stations that can pick up whether there was a significant variation in weather conditions that would, you know, explain why the seeds failed in a given area, and those you can put coupons in these seed bags, and so the farmers who bought the seed bag can go back with the coupon if they were working in an area that was affected, for instance, by drought. So I'm just saying there is ways to package the micro-insurance proposition into something else to make it much more attractive to farmers and much easier to sell than trying to go and knock door to door. But very happy to share more examples of how to package it in smarter ways. I also wanted to answer quickly to Mercy, who said, yeah, but if you start with the middle-income earners, when are we making a difference in the lives of the poorest ones? And I think here I think you misinterpreted, Mercy, the point we were trying to make, meaning, as Pierre was saying, there's no point to go and explain to a very poor farmer that he's stupid and that he should understand better what we're saying. What we're saying is that we should go and try with those who are ready to try and those who are most likely to succeed first. And only then, when those have succeeded, the others will follow quicker. So this is actually not to exclude the small farmers, but to get to a place where the small farmers will feel comfortable adopting the practice after they have seen their neighbors successfully do so. It's actually also not targeting the very small farmers too is also the most ethical thing to do, because they are the most vulnerable ones. So if you push for something that has not fully been, proven in an area to very small farmers, is actually you make them more vulnerable if they fail. So you need to make sure that what you're proposing functions very well in an area, and because, in some villages, and you better test that with the more resilient ones. And only when they have a significant success, then the smaller ones will follow. And follow it in a way where we can be sure that we can help them, reap the benefits of their trying.
Thank you very much, Jessica. Well, I'm really sorry to say that we have unfortunately run out of time, but this was an excellent exchange and discussion, and thank you everyone for your insights, for your time that you've put in participating in the poll, as well as your questions. However, there are plenty of resources still available, and you can continue digging into those on these topics. You can find more information about Hystra's research and many more findings on their website. The webinar has also been recorded and will be available on the website. Please also go to Juhudi Kilimo's website or contact Samuel, who unfortunately was not able to participate today. But their business model is extremely innovative, and we would really encourage you to visit their website. And of course, you can visit the Danone ecosystem website if you would like to know more about them, and you can also subscribe to their newsletter. Thank you again, Danone, for making this event possible. And then finally, you can learn more about the business call to action and our work on our website, and we also do have a case study on Juhudi Kilimo that talks about their group lending in more detail. So you can check out their website and find more resources there. Thank you again for joining us today. Thank you to our wonderful speakers and experts, and thank you to the audience for your participation.
Yes, and for all the questions you want to have that we couldn't answer today, but that you have for Pierre, Samuel, or me, please write us separate emails, and we will be happy to get back to you offline.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks a lot, everyone, for your participation.
And have a good evening or day, depending on where you are.
Thank you, Tatiana. Bye-bye now.